Makar in.
Nino Mac?
Hey, I got hope.
And we're back with episode 3 of Breeding Grounds, everyone's favorite semi-bi-weekly Pokemon podcast. Now, yesterday, we talked about, I believe we talked about nicknames and the top 5 Dragonite counters.
Yeah.
And today we will be celebrating our 3rd episode anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So that's big news for us. Today we will be talking about, and I'm sure we'll have annotations up. As you can tell, this is the first episode hosted on Kamon Draco's site. And we will be talking about team building, themes, thoughts, do's and don'ts. And our top 5 today will be moves in the game, specific to a poke. You'll see what we're talking about once we get there. It's going to be an exciting episode. We're glad to be here. Anything before we get started with our topic?
Besides you saying Kamon Draco and not Kamon Draco, or KamonXx, nothing.
Well, no, we don't want KamonXx. This isn't the Olympics.
If you need a link to his channel, it's below the video because this is on his channel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for watching last week. Also.
yeah, that was we're glad
episode.
to have all the viewers we did last month. That was great to have. All right, so team building. I believe this was brought up by Kamon as a topic. We're just going to talk about how our ideas clash with team building. I guess obviously I'll start. When I build a team, I obviously you have to start somewhere. It's really sporadic where I start. Sometimes I'll start with a lead Crobat. Sometimes I'll start with a reversal Luke, or in the case of my team last June, both. But the difference between me and most team builders is I fill all of my gaps with walls. My thought process is not how to take out the other guy's 6 pokes. It's how to live the attacks from all 6 pokes. So to do that, I have to know, all, 150 fully evolved pokes. I have to know how to take hits from all of them, how to take status from all of them. That's how I build a team. So I don't look at offensive synergy to beat things with 2 walls. I look at complete defense, just how to take hits. First concern is living. And I know both of you have different thoughts on that, just going by battles from you. So, Kamon, when you build a team, how do you do it? Where do you start? Where do you end? How do you fill in the gaps?
That's kind of a tough one. I mean, it depends on what I'm looking for, with the mind scheme I'm looking for. If I'm primarily offensive, if I'm going kind of in between, if I'm planning to go defensive or stall. I usually start with my at least my 2 main core defensive picks, mainly because if you don't have at least 2 solid defensive pokes that can kind of work together, you really are going to have a hard time dealing with hits.
Now, I have a quick question about that. Do you say, okay, I'm going to build a team, I want it to be offensive, but I'm going to start with 2 walls? Or do you start with 2 walls, and then if you see the offensive potency, do you start making an offensive team?
That's actually a good question. I mean, usually I'll go maybe 1 to 2 pokes, and then either switch to walls, or I will work on my tank or the glue to the team.
So there's no mindset of how the team will look before you're making the team.
Somewhat.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of running kind of a weird mix of usually anti-lead, 1 primarily physical wall, 1 primarily special wall, 1 tank / kind of hybrid wall, I guess. Usually then 1 special sweeper and then 1 physical sweeper. But then, depending on who's in place and how the team's building, then certain roles will obviously change.
Right, because for me, I can have a Roserade, and that can be, I can have that for bulky waters like Suicune. I can have that, sorry Cooper, I know I just butchered the name. I can have, and at the same time, Roserade is a Leech Seed user, it's a Sleep Powder user, so it's not just there, like it's defensive, but its main use ends up being offense, just because it hurts things more than it ends up taking hits. So that's kind of why I lack offensive potency. And Cooper, you kind of lack experience at building a team, but you have done it. So what's your experience? How did you go into that process?
You mean the one team where I didn't just pick six guys from the box and throw them together?
Exactly. And, well, you do have a team reveal video for that, but
I do.
I guess you can explain, now that you've seen the team in action, you can explain more how it worked out.
Yeah, so that team I started off with the core. Nice voice crack. Started off with a core, which wound up to be not so good, but it got me started. And threw on a tertiary wall, something to set up a lead, to set up hazards and soak up T-spikes. And then just kind of rounded out the team with realizing that I didn't really care about Stealth Rock too much with the guys I had, so I kept that as a theme for the team, to not give it a weakness that it didn't need to have with the guys already in place. And I did need at least one guy who could kill things. That's usually kind of helpful.
I know it's got to be Aquatail Gliscor. Aquatail Gliscor.
No, that's actually on my don'ts list, is don't run Aquatail in areas.
Yeah, Stealth Rock, for me, that's actually
It's
another...
so
that's
good.
an interesting point that you bring up, Stealth Rocks, because recently, I think it must be over a year that I've gone into a team and felt comfortable without a rapid spinner, just because I'm so paranoid about spikes, toxic spikes. Even though they're pretty rare, they're kind of a fleeting thing to see, but I always feel ruined because I think I switch a lot more than most players. So just the fear of having Stealth Rocks or spikes in the back of my mind, it's just better, even if I don't end up using it all match, just to have rapid spin on my team. That's been a huge priority lately.
Yeah, see, these last couple battles I posted, I sort of had the same thing. I didn't really feel like I feared Stealth Rock too much. I had a Focus Sash lead who was weak to it, and everyone else either healed themselves, resisted it, or blew up. So I didn't really see any rapid spin.
I think it's just a matter, I don't have that mindset, and you do, so... You know that you could call that an advantage or a disadvantage in T-building. It's really how you look at it. And
I mean, obviously you limit your options somewhat if you try to build your team around not needing rapid spin.
Right. But at the same time, there's only so many rapid spinners, and even fewer that are really competitively viable. So it's... A lot of times I feel like I'm shackled when I have to have a rapid spinner.
Let's use Starmie.
Right. It's the only one with reliable recovery, which I'm a freak about having. And Kamon, I don't think I've ever seen you running a rapid spinner. Why, when you put a team together, do you consider SR at all?
On one of my pokes?
Just for the team in general. Like Cooper said, he decided that he didn't need a spinner because Stealth Rocks really doesn't threaten him. He can compensate for Stealth Rocks with all of his guys.
I usually have the same kind of ordeal set up. I mean, I generally prefer to have at least one of my two walls hopefully resistant to it. No more than two pokes that are weak. And I generally prefer if I have one poke that's 4 times weak to Stealth Rock, then I have at least 3 people that can resist. So, I mean, I have a couple small little kind of, I wouldn't really call them rules, but kind of guidelines to try to, work with.
Right, and that's another weakness to having a rapid spinner in some cases. If I have a Starmie, then, maybe I feel free to run Shedinja, I feel free to run Yanmega. But if he has a Dusknoir, I have a useless poke hanging around on my team. I can't compensate for SR. So, in some cases, it definitely can be better to plan a team around taking SR than it is to not having SR against you. I think that about wraps it up. I'm happy with how I explained my team building process right there. Are you guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got some do's and don'ts we can discuss.
Yeah, go for it.
Alright, one thing I like to do is trade off being 100% walled for the ability to do more to more. Like a Gliscor with Earthquake and Toxic. It's pretty good, but you have absolutely nothing to hit Skarmory and Bronzong with. but that's okay. What is Gliscor really going to do to them anyway?
Okay.
So just be able to do more to more with your movesets instead of throw something on there, oh, I can't hit this guy at all. Well, you might not be able to do much to it anyway. You should just use somebody else.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, Sizer, if you have a Sizer, you know you're not going to do anything to Zapdos. So, why change your moveset to hit Zapdos when you can plan on...
Why make yourself weaker against the rest of the field?
Yeah, when you could have moves to better cover the field you can cover.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. What else do you have?
This one's sort of tried and true. On something like a Trick Room teams that have some sort of a goal or a gimmick have some sort of a fallback guy, like a fast guy on a Trick Room team, so that you don't just automatically lose if your Trick Room guy gets knocked out or whatever.
Or Baton Pass.
Yeah, or Baton Pass. Let's see, this one gets into Smogon. Don't just copy a set from Smogon without thinking about how it fits on your team. If you just think, oh, this Pokemon would go great, what's a good set for him? Here's a set with Smogon, I'm going to throw it on there. Don't do that.
I mean, some of their sets are tried and tested. They're the best set that exists for that poke. Like
yeah,
Croco.
they are, but what I'm saying is don't copy the first set without thinking. Like, if you need Starmie, for example, Starmie will be good on here. Don't just pick a choice spec or something.
Yeah,
consider the set, not just the poke.
I think that's
should be pretty obvious. But
in the past year or so, I've kind of drifted towards running more standard things, but it's just all specialized. Like my most recent Starmie. The set isn't going to surprise anybody. No one's going to switch in a Gyarados, and be surprised when I use T-Bolt. But it's this set that best works for that team. It's not. I'm not going out of my way to be original, but I'm not also not conforming completely. I'm fitting in. And
this one is one I think we talk about with Gastrodon sometimes. It's not so much about the types of moves and what types you can beat, but about what Pokemon you can beat with those moves.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's hard to think about that just because there's so many Pokemon.
Yeah, and that's something that I get into a lot is, I should have moves to cover these other types, as opposed to, let's look through the top whatever pokes and see how well this moveset matches up against them.
Do you have any don'ts?
Don't run Aquatail and Aerial Ace.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's about it.
I can agree with that. All right, I think it's time for our top 5. I think it's an interesting top 5. The top 5 moves in the game. Now, we don't mean, Leech Seed, Will-O-Wisp. We mean specific to a poke. For example, Heatran's Fire Blast. This is the move that is central to the poke. If this poke didn't have this move, its value would depreciate just greatly. You can build any set, well, not necessarily any set, but it's common to build sets around this move. It's just the move that really makes the poke what it is, the defining move. What do you guys think the best moves in the game are?
Are we starting at the 5th and working up, or starting first and working down?
Right. I'd say start at the 5th.
Okay.
Adds drama.
Are we going to all say 5th? And then
I guess I'll just say my top 5 first.
Okay.
5th, I have Whirlwind Skarmory. Skarmory is the best physical wall in the game to me. And the main reason it has that is because of its ability to handle setup sweepers. Dragonite, Snorlax, Gyarados, Tyranitar, Sizer, those are some of the main setup sweepers I can think about, on the physical side, of course. Skarmory can take one hit from all of them. It can switch in and take a hit from all of them. Oh, and Lucario. And there's plenty of pokes that can switch in and take a hit. Well, maybe not plenty with something like Dragonite. But, Skarm can live a min special attack Fire Blast, and then it can Whirlwind away. So the threat's gone. there aren't many pokes that can switch in and have something to do. It's usually a trade-off. You either have something to do or you can take a hit. To me, there's just a very small amount of pokes who can switch in and do something, and I think Whirlwind is that answer. It gets rid of it, and with spikes, as the set's built around that, you can rack up damage on other pokes. Fourth, Dynamic Punch Machamp. I'm afraid to switch in Skarmory on Machamp, who I just said is the best physical wall in the game, and Machamp is one of the marquee physical attackers, because I'm petrified of confusion. You know, two Dynamic Punches get close to killing Skarm, and then I have to Roost, which he can kill me with another. And
on top of that, if you Roost, you're going to give yourself a weakness to it as well.
Right. With the bulk he has, with the ability, obviously, and with the physical power, Confusion is just a huge asset on him. Third, Roost Zapdos. It makes it the best pressure staller in the game, in my opinion. It can take hits. It has two weaknesses, which aren't extremely common, and it can handle pokes that have stab with those moves. It can handle almost every rock type, and certainly every ice type, in my opinion, anyway. I just think it's so hard to kill with Roost. It can balance offense and defense like no other poke. Second, I have Bullet Punch Sizer. Come on, it's one of the strongest priority moves in the game. He has massive attack. It's a great move. It hits every poke. Plenty of pokes resist it, but it gets plenty of power. And first, best move in the game, Calm Mind Suicune. I think it's one of the hardest pokes to kill. It's just, if it gets a Calm Mind, it can take two of any hit, essentially, especially with max defense. It just does so much. It has the best stab move to do that, because water is just it has great coverage. Calm Mind Suicune is the best move in the game to me.
Alright, well, shall I go next?
Sure.
Alright, number 5, I've got one who's underappreciated. I got Electivire with Earthquake. As one of Electivire's claims to fame is, he likes to hit almost every type in the game for weakness. You can't do that unless you have Earthquake. And it stands out to me because prior to Electivire becoming available, Electabuzz does not learn Earthquake, and therefore it's not able to hit all the weaknesses like Evire can. And of course it's just a solid move with all that attack and good typing. So fourth I have, how can I not have this one? Aggron with Head Smash. It shot him up in the tiers a little bit anyway. Definitely made him way more usable. Gave him that powerful attack that he needed. It's not anything really good on the Steel side, and Stone Edge is it's the same accuracy as Head Smash. If you don't EV train at your accuracy, EV's up and up. But Head Smash, yeah, your stab Head Smash is stronger than pretty much any other coverage move you could use unless they Fortress Resist Rock. Third, I originally had as Machamp, but since Maka already mentioned it, I'll throw some love to Breloom with Spore. It's great in combination with other things, but just by being the fastest user of Spore, I believe he's tied with Smirtle, right? I mean, he's not tied with Smirtle, but he can actually do things unlike Smirtle. So you do things that involve getting things dead. Second, I have Ninjask with Baton Pass. If he did not get Baton Pass, I don't know why anyone would ever use him. Except for CB, I suppose. And number 1, I have Togekiss with Air Slash. It's definitely the best move it has to abuse Ring Race. And I guess that's sort of a recurring thing we have, is a lot of these moves work in tandem with their abilities. And if they didn't have these moves, then they wouldn't be able to abuse their abilities quite as much. So that's sort of the angle I took to it.
Alright, yeah. Neat list. EQ on Evire definitely surprised me. That was interesting. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I wanted to go for a little bit less obvious one, I guess.
But yeah, great argument for it. Alright, Kamon, what you got?
I don't know if I can exactly say any of these in exact order of 5, just because...
Who cares?
I know. But they're all extremely viable, and I feel that if they don't make the poke or make the set, they're definitely the best users of the move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, easy example is Starmie with Rapid Spin. I mean, I'm not the biggest Starmie fanatic, but I do respect the fact that it is by far the best spinner.
Now, why
Typing,
was that not on my list?
I mean, not only not only does it have great typing, decent bulk, a lot of speed to make sure that it can not only do multi-purposes such as revenge, but I mean, the fact that it's able to get spin on top of all this just makes it to become so much more of a viable poke, and then in combination with natural cure, makes it so much harder to shut down the spinner. Number 4, that's number 4, 3, 2, or 1. Well, one that I got on my mind right now, I really like Dragon Daemon's Gyarados. Not necessarily for the fact that Gyarados is good or not good without it, but mainly for the fact that once he gets 1-up, and for as easy it is for him to come in with Intimidate, that you can usually come in, either wreck or ruin a physical attacker, force them out because they're afraid of dealing with that, or even just stop status all in general and then dance up to your inevitable sweep. Just makes him too dangerous, let alone water and flying typing gives him a lot of resistances that a lot of pokes would love to have. Another one I feel is doesn't get enough love is Fortress with Toxic Spikes. Why I mentioned him is even though he's not one of the common poison plus Toxic Spike users, the fact that he's able to do it easily by taking 2 hits or more with his great typing, his only 1 weakness, very good defensive stats. I mean, even a special defense at being, I think it's like it's either base 60 or base 70, coupled with how much you can move around in his EVs is really good. Mentioning then on top of that the fact that he gets Rapid Spin and every other hazard in the game that you can then couple with that, meaning you're not forced to use Toxic Spikes, unlike most other Toxic Spike users. I just feel it makes him overly viable with the move.
Has other options.
And then on top of that one, if we're going to be talking about spikes, I have to put Skarmory on that list for spikes usage, since I can't think of any other poke in the game that can use spikes anywhere even close to as good as Skarm. As Makar has already mentioned with his typing and resistances and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I actually had to battle with myself if I wanted to use spikes or whirlwind for my list.
Yeah, that's actually a tough call because I mean, when it comes down to both of them, he kind of is the best of using both of them. So
right, yeah.
And then after that, it becomes really, really hard to really say who I feel for a certain desirable move. But two come to my mind, and I'll say them both just because. Aromatherapy Bliss. Just because a natural cure, being able to guarantee that you can't be slept or frozen coming in to put it up. You great HP, defense that actually, with that great HP, it becomes not so frail. Great special defense. And then, self-heal, can't complain with that. And then, on the opposite side, I just had this poke on the top of my mind, I can't think of it.
What does it do? What type?
Wow, I can't believe I entirely forgot. Oh well, that's at least 5, so I can't really complain.
Might have been 4. But,
Was it 4?
who knows?
Nah, whatever.
There was another one that was the opposite of Aromatherapy Bliss. Alright, so, we have survived the top 5. It's time for our next segment. That's right. It's time for Today in the Savers Corner Part 3. Today we have a clip from the great MTG Xerxes.
Oh.
And this one doesn't stand out quite as fast. In fact, when I first watched this video, I did not pick up on it. It wasn't until later when I realized that something was a little dodgy about this sequence of moves. So let's check it out. Let's get the video ready to play, and let's play it in 3, 2, 1, play.
Flash, like flash fire, get it?
We've got Charm. Okay.
Charm.
Nothing wrong with that. Oh.
Charm is learned by Happini, am I right?
Yeah, I would have liked to see that Charm Estos Bliss on his diamond where he breeds.
Yeah, don't think Happini is a 3rd gen Pokemon. Therefore,
Come to think of it,
It's gotta be. You just kind of, you use Salve and
you
you just
it
find
backwards.
Happini, in the wild.
Oh, you can do that?
You Palpark Happini backwards. Get
Did they
Charm
add that in,
Estos.
like HGSS?
Right,
You can
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Once again, thank you for tuning in to Breeding Grounds Episode 3. It's been a great podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Obviously, you all know when Episode 4 is going to be out, so you can hit my channel for that one. We're going to stick with our little rotation there. With that, Makar out.
Take care, guys.
Later days.